Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 expansion team extravaganza involving the Buffalo Wings. We are now a season into this series. The Buffalo franchise had an A ball team and a rookie ball team last season on the field. For this upcoming 2024 season, we have expanded things a bit, and we now have a AA team in Utica, New York, and we have a DSL team that will be starting action this year. We did draft during the past season, and I guess we've made a small amount of progress because we rank 31st out of 32 teams rather than 32 out of 32, which is where we were not that long ago. Still got a lot of improvements that we need to make. You can see our A-ball team, the Marathon Keys, did pretty well last year. Our rookie ball team, not so good. And as I mentioned, we'll also have a AA team and a Dominican League rookie team this upcoming season. You may have noticed in our last episode that I didn't talk much about our coaching staff, which for those of you who have watched me before will realize is a odd thing. The reason I didn't talk about it too much is that we had made up coaches assigned to us for last season by an error in the settings when I was setting things up. So what I've done now is I've fired all of those coaches and hired some familiar names. Byron Nichols, now part of the organization. Eric Cormier. You can see we've got Rick Jameson as our team trainer. Lonnie Goldberg as our scout. And Michael Hill as an assistant GM. Still waiting on hiring for most of the major league coaches. We should be starting 2 seasons from now in the majors. And my thought is there's definitely a chance that some of the coaches in our farm system may move up in the organization and be guys that I'd be interested in hiring at the major league level. So Lonnie Goldberg, obviously a very good scout, good in the majors, minors, and internationally, excellent with amateurs, and he's highly favored tools. That said, if there is an even better highly favored tools scout who becomes available over the next off season or two, I could certainly see myself biting the bullet and firing Goldberg, paying him out, and bringing somebody else on board to make our scouting even better. Want to minimize the amount of times I do that because we have to kind of rebuild everything as far as scouting each time we do that. But felt like bringing him on board along with Rick Jameson and the other coaches who are part of our organization will hopefully make things a bit more realistic going forward. And obviously we'll be adding a AAA team and a high A team next season to round out our minor league system. So right now it's January 15th. Other than working on the coaching staff, we have made a number of offers recently to minor league players to hopefully help fill out our system. Because right now we've only got 6 players in AA, 10 in single A. We do have 32 in rookie ball and then 14 on our Dominican rookie ball team. But we've certainly got to add some more players to round out our system. So we're going to try to bring on a bunch of pure minor leaguers over the next week or two. And then when we get into spring training and there's some hopefully somewhat higher quality players who start being willing to accept minor league deals, hopefully we'll round out the organization in a couple of months. But right now, here on January 15th, it is time for international amateur free agency to begin. We've got $4.75 million that we can potentially spend. We've built up some decent relationships with some of the top prospects possible. And I think we're going to try to swing for the fences. In my previous playthroughs in OOTP 24 with the Yankees and the Reds, I tended to try to spread the money around to bring in 3, 4, 5 players in any given international amateur free agent period. There's a couple guys who I really like, so while I'd like to bring on multiple players, if I have to spend basically all of my money to get one of the big guys that I'd like to bring on board, I am more than willing to do that to hopefully give us a cornerstone player to attempt to build around. Looking at the top players available, and we'll look at the 7 guys that our scout thinks are 5-star potential players, and we're up to high scouting accuracy on all of them since they've all been in our last 3 camps since Lonnie Goldberg took over as our scout. Right fielder Sergio Aguirre, not a guy I'm going to chase after. The home run power is off the charts, but honestly, contact will be a little above average if he completely develops, but gap power, eye, avoiding strikeouts, all below average. Don't love the low intelligence, not a lot of speed, not a great defensive player. Not someone I'm going to chase after. Second baseman Jesus Britos, a very interesting prospect. He doesn't really have a defensive position, but he's got high work ethic, high intelligence, pretty good speed, really good bunter. And if he completely develops, he's a durable player who has a excellent potential bat. So he's a pretty interesting prospect. Andres Medina, the catcher out of Brazil, another guy that I really like. High leadership, excellent defensively, durable, and potentially has a pretty interesting bat for a catcher if he can harness most of his contact, home run power, and eye that we think he could have. So he's an interesting prospect as well. Luis Rochin, right fielder, like the high work ethic and intelligence, not incredible defensively. Looks like he could also play first base given his 6'2" height. Looks like a pretty good prospect. Definitely somebody I would think about. Have him a notch behind Britos and Medina. Estefan Sandino, right field prospect out of the Dominican. Just a potentially awesome hitting prospect. Again, not great defensively. Has the arm to play right field, but not incredible range and error ratings. But with contact, gap power, and home run power that all potentially are close to maxed out. Certainly an interesting prospect. Adamaro Schechner out of Germany. Another pretty interesting prospect. A very similar bat, like the durability, like the high work ethic. Another guy who's not an ideal defensive player with that below average error and arm rating potentially. But with that bat, you'll find a spot for him. And then the most interesting pitching prospect is Austin Throsby, 16-year-old out of Australia. High work ethic and intelligence. He's 16 years old, almost 17, and he's already throwing in the mid-90s. The question is just whether he's going to develop enough to be a really good starter or a lights-out reliever. His fastball and changeup both look like they could be excellent, but if that changeup doesn't develop, then you're really reliant on the curve fully developing and the sinker fully developing. And even then, that third pitch of the curveball is going to be kind of marginal. So it's conceivable that he ends up as a extremely high-end reliever, but certainly has potential to be a very good starter as well. So those are the top prospects. You can see that we've got strong to very strong relationships with all of them except for Schechner. League interest also very high in all of those players. So we're going to have to decide where we want to push our chips in to get things started. And one player that I know I'm going for is Andres Medina, looking for $1.2 million. Certainly think there's potential that the catcher is going to be a max player. We're going to try to overwhelm him with a offer of $1.5 million, so 25% more than he's looking for. I'm sure other teams will be all in on him as well. Jesus Britos, second baseman. Love the potential bat, love the durability, love the personality, love the above average speed. Says he's looking for $900,000. We're going to go over with him as well. Again, I don't really think we're going to get any of these guys without ultimately going to the maximum. But if there's a chance that we can shock the world a bit by making a big offer right away and getting one of them signed, we're willing to play that game. Last but not least, Esteban Sandino, 17-year-old out of the Dominican, really attracted to that bat. And we are going to make him an offer as well. We'll offer him $1.6 million. So we're offering everyone $300,000 more than they're supposedly looking for. I do expect that at least two of these players, if not all three, are going to end up going for the maximum. So at this point, it's really just a matter of letting Britos, Medina, and Sandina all know that we are serious players and interested in them. And I'm guessing that at some point over the next week or two, we're going to have to probably decide to drop out in the bidding on one and raise offers on two of them. And potentially we may need to go up to the max on one of these players, but really like all three of them. And if we can get one of these three guys on board when all is said and done, even if we have to spend pretty close to the maximum, going for quality over quantity this year, given that we've got another couple seasons till we'll be playing in the major leagues anyways. And it would be great to bring on a top-level prospect into our organization who can hopefully get us ranked higher than 31st as far as farm systems, and even more importantly than the rankings, hopefully help set up our team for some success in the majors 5, 10, 15 years down the line. And not surprisingly, the catching prospect Andres Medina, already looking for more money, wants us to counter. And we need to get to 2.8 million. Can't go over the cap with the other offers that we have out there. Highest we can go right now is only 1.95 million. I'm guessing he's not even going to really consider that. Yeah, he wants us to do better. So I think we're going to have to wait to hear back from one of those other players. Hope that Big Baby Medina does not sign with somebody else between now and then. It'll all be happening real fast over the next couple of days, I'm sure. And Jesus Britos has gotten back to us and says that he's also looking for another offer. We're only going to have to get to 1.4 million to keep the conversation going with him. That bat is enticing. I thought that if Britos was looking for $2.5, $3 million, I would pivot back to Medina. But I'm actually going to see if maybe we can get Mr. Britos on board. So we're going to up his offer to 1.6 million, even more than he's looking for, and see if maybe we can entice him to come on board. And not surprisingly, Jesus Britos is back looking for even more money, and he's got an offer from the other expansion team in Nashville. Says he's looking for 2.6 million. So for similar money, I still do have some interest in the catcher Andres Medina. and he's looking for $3.8 million right now. So close to maxing out. I'm going to go right to $4 million for him and see if maybe we can get it done. We might end up having to max out at $4.75 million. If that's what it takes, I'm happy to do it. We'll see what happens. And we're barely a week into things. Medina supposedly favors our offer, so we're still waiting to hear back from him. Obviously, if we get him signed, Sandino and Britos would both be out of our ability with a $4.75 million budget. But if Medina does move on to somebody else, hopefully at least either Sandino or Britos will still be around for us to use as a fallback if we can't get the catcher signed to our international complex. And the good news is that although it took over 80% of our international amateur free agent budget, we have gotten catcher Andres Medina signed to that $4 million offer. No guarantee that he's going to develop as we hope. Does have a good personality with the high leadership, loyalty, and adaptability. Obviously would love if there was also a high work ethic in there in terms of his development, but love the durability. He's only 16 years old. If he's able to develop anywhere close to his potential with his bat, with that potential for 70 catcher ability and a plus catcher arm, he could definitely be a cornerstone for us to build this franchise around for the next 15 plus seasons once he gets to the majors. So hopefully that'll work out. You can see one of the other guys that we were looking at, Esteban Sandino, signed with the Guardians. Looking at his history, he ended up going for a little more, a little over $4.2 million. So we do have one of the three players that we really loved as potential prospects signed out of the international amateur free agent pool, and now we're down to just $750,000 left to spend. So going to have to start targeting some less high-end prospects, but maybe we can still bring another player or two into our farm system over the coming weeks. And we got some good news. We did sign two other players. Jesus Britos did just end up signing with Toronto. We'll see what he ended up getting. Actually signed for less than $3 million. So he was certainly the value. I'm not going to complain because I really like the catching prospect that we brought on board. But Britos, knowing we could have gotten him for about $3 million, still a very interesting hitting prospect as well. As I mentioned, we have signed a couple other much lesser international amateur free agents. Jesus Anguiano, a guy that we brought on board for $250,000. Don't see him as a big-time prospect, but you never know what can happen. And then Hans Ries out of Germany. Really more for the good personality than anything else. We got him signed for $140,000. Don't think he's a big-time prospect, but should be a good influence on some of the other players at the international complex. So that gives us with three players signed now out of the international amateur free agent class, and we've still got $360,000 to spend. So outside chance that we'll be able to get one more prospect on board. And we got one more international amateur free agent signed, the starting pitcher, Jorge Gavilanes, really just there for his personality with the high work ethic. You look at what our scout thinks, and obviously he's only 16 years old and we've got low scouting accuracy, but certainly doesn't look like he's going to turn into a big-time player. But with the high work ethic, with the durability, and with the fact that he's already throwing in the low to mid 90s at 16 years old, figure for the $150,000 it ended up costing us, might as well bring another lottery ticket into camp. So at this point, we are down to just $210,000 left to spend. You can see at this point, we're really just searching for guys with good personalities to be a good influence on our farm system. And there's not even too many of them left at this point. Noe Acero is a guy that we had tried to sign, but he's looking for much more than we have available at this point, unfortunately. And Noe Acero, who we mentioned, had a really good personality with the high adaptability, work ethic, and intelligence, ended up signing with Boston, and he ended up getting $557,000, so good for him. We brought in one more player, Ishmael Dominguez. Not a real big-time prospect, really just a body for organizational depth for $150,000, but gives us a fifth player signed, and importantly, helped us start beefing up our international complex a bit. Obviously, Medina and Anguiano are the two top prospects, led, of course, by Medina, but starting to at least get a little bit of depth with the 5 players that we've signed in international amateur free agency, as well as 5 players that our scouts have discovered over the last year or so. And we've made it to opening day of the Major League season. You can see we've beefed up our rosters a bit. We've got 32 players in AA, 36 in Single A, 28 in the Florida Rookie League, and 29 in the DSL. Obviously, we will be supplementing likely highly at the Rookie League with 20 players from the draft in a few months. So probably we'll be cutting some players over the coming months as we get ready to add some more talent, but we have a minor league system that is up and running to some extent at this point. Taking a look at player development, and we're up to 11th overall. That's really entirely driven by Andres Medina, who is considered to be the #1 prospect in all of baseball. Obviously have a long way to go to see what he could potentially become. You can see that as we've gotten to know him a little better, his catcher ability not as good, dropped down to a 65 from a 70. Still looks like he could have a pretty interesting bat for us. So I guess we made the right choice, given that he's viewed as the #1 prospect in baseball. By virtue of us kind of being a nothing at the major league level, we are going to have potentially a higher international amateur free agent budget next year, which will be nice. You can see we've maxed out player development. We've also maxed out scouting for this year. Ownership gave us a big bump in our budget. It really doesn't matter, and we're going to change it back down to a much lower amount when we do actually start playing at the major league level in a couple of seasons. But I guess they kind of like what we're doing so far, even though we are not really doing much of anything except building a minor league system, signing some international amateur free agents, participating in the draft, and bringing on some players with high leadership, work ethic, and intelligence, and other positive traits into our farm system to hopefully be a good influence on development. And as I mentioned at the start of the episode, we've also started to build what I think could be a pretty good coaching staff. So the 2024 season is moving along. We've made it to the first-year player draft. Once again, Buffalo and Nashville will be picking only ahead of the playoff teams. We did switch things around this year, giving ourselves the earlier pick in the first round than Nashville has. Take a quick look, and we can also just check in on how the minor league teams are doing so far. Utica 37 and 47 in Double A, Marathon 42 and 38 in Single A, and then very early stages of the Rookie League seasons, but neither is going particularly well with the FCL Wings 12 and 17 and the DSL Wings just 8 and 21. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of time to sign international amateur free agents. We signed 5 of them this past year, and most of them are too young to really be contributing to our DSL team. And then we've only had a handful of fines from our scout over this first year also. So this DSL team is really just built with players who are eligible to play in the DSL that we picked up off of the free agent list because no one else had them in their farm system. So definitely not the strongest team in the league. Certainly looking at player development, still rank 11th. Andres Medina, still viewed as the number 1 prospect in baseball. So really glad that we ended up with him for $4 million in international amateur free agency this year. And we will get the player draft underway. The Marlins on the board with the first pick in the draft. You can see, at least according to our scout, not a ton of real high potential talent. I would say it's going to be pretty doubtful that any of these guys are around when it comes to our pick. But hopefully where we are in the early 20s, there will be somebody who will be able to help us in a few seasons. And as we are on the clock here in the 20th pick, you can see there is one player with more than 3-star potential who's still around, Henry Allen, 18-year-old third baseman. The bat is mildly interesting, potentially plus contact, really good gap power, and well above average home run power, average eye. He will strike out a decent amount. Work ethic hopefully guarantees that he'll have as good a shot as possible at reaching his full potential. Not particularly good defensively anywhere. He is 6'1", so he could end up being a first baseman. And really, he's a first baseman or a DH. Wouldn't really feel very comfortable playing him anywhere else. Could play him at third in a pinch, but wouldn't feel good about doing it defensively. So he's certainly number 1 on the list of the batters so far. Taking a look at the pitchers, you can see there's not even a 3-star prospect out there at this point. So I'm going to spend a little time scouting out some things. We'll come back and let you know who our scout recommends and who I think we should go with. And I think I'm going to be inclined to go with a position player. There are a number of pitchers who are, as you saw, only 2.5-star potential, who are looking for some pretty big money. So my odds are that one of them will be around in the second round when we're picking, if we decide to go for a pitcher. Taking a look at who I think the 4 most interesting prospects are. Henry Allen, we've already talked about. Looks like he could have a plus bat. Good chance that he'll develop fully. Just kind of a man without a position. Carson Bowen is a decent catching prospect. Looks pretty average defensively, but could have maybe a slightly above average major league bat. Michael Mullinax, the center field prospect, like the speed, enough range that he could be a competent center fielder. Think he'd be a pretty good defensive left fielder or right fielder, and looks like he could be a little bit above average in terms of his bat. And then last but not least, Josh Springer, another catcher prospect. Not great defensively, but the bat certainly looks somewhat interesting, given that we've got the number 1 prospect in all of baseball at catcher. Probably will not go down the route. So it's probably going to be Mullinax or Allen if it's up to me. We'll see what our scouting director recommends. And he suggests we go right with Henry Allen. I can't really argue with that. Again, I think he's going to end up as a first baseman or a DH. But if you're a player who has a little bit above average contact with well above average home run power, a decent eye, and really good gap power, although he doesn't really have the speed to take advantage of it, could be a useful offensive player. So I think we are going to follow what Lonnie Goldberg recommends, and we are going to meet the relatively low demand of Henry Allen. As I said, we do have the opportunity with all of the money that we're saving up by not paying a major league team in a major league roster, that we do have the opportunity to maybe go for somebody who falls into the second or third round that's looking for a little bit more money. So we'll see whether or not that happens. Here at the top of the second round with our second pick, you can see Mullinax is gone. We do have Bowen and Springer. The two catchers are still around. But taking a look at the pitching prospects, I think there's a few of the guys that we had looked at who are still available. In fact, I know that there are just by looking at the demands of what they're looking for. So going to spend a little time looking at them, and we'll let you know who I think the most interesting prospects happen to be. And a lot of these pitchers here are relatively interchangeable among the 2.5-star starting prospects. Honestly, the one that I like the most is probably the one who's most developed, Sean Sullivan, coming out of Wake Forest. According to our scout, he's already got a major league fastball, a excellent major league curve, and an above-average changeup. His stuff looks like it could be a little bit above average. The movement not great. The control potentially a little bit above average. Doesn't throw incredibly hard. But for an expansion team like ours in 2 seasons, he probably would conceivably be a second or third starter for us. I think in a perfect scenario, he's a 4th or a 5th starter at the major league level. But I'm definitely intrigued by him and think he's probably the most solid of the couple handful of 2.5-star potential starting pitchers who are still out there. Our scouting director recommends Carson Bowen, the catcher, who I did like, but I just don't see catcher being a huge need of ours right now. If either Bowen or Josh Springer happens to be around next round, I'd probably jump at the chance to take either of them. But right now, we're going to go with Sean Sullivan, the college pitching prospect. So we're going to draft him, go and see who's available here. One 2.5-star pitching prospect, Jake McCowan, still left here in the 3rd round. He looks pretty similar to others. Quite honestly, his control and his movement might be a little weaker than most of the other guys. Also doesn't throw incredibly hard. But he would be in the mix if neither of those catchers is still around. But as it turns out, Josh Springer is still around, and I kind of like him. We'll see what our scouting director recommends, but I don't think he's going to convince me to not go with Springer here in the 3rd round. He recommends Mateo Gray, 3rd base prospect. Okay-ish bat, like the home run power and potentially decent eye. Don't love the low work ethic. I think we are going to take the young catcher, Josh Springer. We'll look at this other catcher, Jaden Melendez, who just looks like he's got a great personality. 21-year-old coming out of FIU. Not much of a hitter. Do like the defense. If he lingers another couple rounds, I'd consider bringing him on just to bolster our farm system. But right now we are going to go with Springer, the young catcher, here in the 3rd round. Moving on to the 4th, and Melendez still is there. Looking at the pitchers, we're down to only a handful of even 2-star prospects at this point here in the 4th round. Take a look to see if there's anyone to go with, and we'll see what the scouting director recommends. He recommends Drew Graham, who is one of those prospects. For a 4th round pick, he's not a horrible prospect. He's got good work ethic. Potentially a 4-pitch arsenal, more likely a 3-pitch arsenal. Looks like he could be a pretty average-ish major league pitcher if he completely develops. And it's pretty slim pickings here. I do feel like Graham sadly, here in the fourth round, may have as much potential as any of the pitchers who are available overall. So we're going to go ahead and pick him. There certainly was the argument to go with the catcher that's got the great personality. I just don't know that we really need him. So I'd rather go with a pitcher who has a 10% chance of turning into something at a position where we're always going to be in need of help, rather than another catcher at this point, given that we've got the number one prospect in baseball at that position, and we already brought on another catcher here in the draft already. That said, if the catcher's still here in the fifth round, probably we'll pick him up. And he is still out there, Jaden Melendez. Do like the personality, do like the defense to help our pitchers develop. Obviously going to take a look at some other prospects too. Our scouting director recommends Jack Caglianone. Not a particularly exciting first base prospect in my mind. And here in the fifth round, I'm not going to go with Jack Caglianone, and I'm also actually not going to go with Jaden Melendez. Much as I love the personality and the defense, he's obviously very unlikely to ever be a major leaguer with that bat. So although I'd love his influence in our farm system, we're actually going to go with the shortstop, Owen Paino. Looks like he could have a major league-ish type of bat. He's not really a shortstop, but he's kind of got the defensive skills to play any position in the infield defensively, particularly given that he's also 6'4". Could also play left or right field in a pinch. See him really in a perfect situation as kind of a utility infielder, kind of a 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th man kind of on the roster. But we're certainly going to have need for players like that at some point, given that I can construct a scenario in which Paino does become a major leaguer. That's kind of the reason why I'll go him over Melendez, although Melendez will be a great influence in my farm system. When I look at the bat, I just can't really paint a scenario where he's a major leaguer for me, because although I do like the glove and really like the personality, I'd rather go with a guy that I think could contribute at the major league level more likely. So we're going to go with the youngster Paino. That said, if Melendez is still lingering in the sixth round, we'll pick him up. He is still here, so at this point we will pick Melendez to supplement our farm system. If I do anything else interesting over the last 14 rounds of the draft, I will let you know. And we made it to the end of the regular season. You can see the Red Sox and the Mariners with the byes in the American League, the Braves and the Dodgers with the byes in the National League here in 2024. Take a look at how the minor league seasons went for our affiliates of the Wings. Wasn't great. Utica and AA went 65 and 73. Marathon in A-ball went 59 and 73. The FCL team went 25 and 30, and the DSL team really struggled in their first year of action, going 16 and 44. Take a look at our prospects at this point. Minor league system ranks 12th. The only top 100 prospect remains Andres Medina, the 17-year-old. Looks like his arm is a little weaker than we previously thought, but his catcher ability is once again a little higher than we thought. Still looks like the contact and the home run power could be very good. We'll see how he develops. He's going to be 17 and a half by the time spring training rolls around next year, so while he won't be in spring training with us, there's an argument to be made that he might be ready to move on to the DSL next year. We'll have to decide on that. Looking at a couple of the other key prospects in our system, may remember that we took Jace Barofin on the first round last season, 2023. Played rookie ball only last year. This year was much more productive, and he split the season between A and Double A. 287 with 21 homers in A ball, and then 262 with 13 homers in Double A. So 34 homers, 106 ribbies on the year between the two levels. We will be adding a AAA team next season, and certainly think that Borofin will be in AAA for us next year. You can see he's as competent as he's going to be at playing all three of the outfield positions right now. We've made sure to focus on getting him as versatile as possible, and think that there is a definite chance that the player that we picked out of Arkansas about a year and a half ago will be on our major league roster as either our starting left fielder or right fielder for the 2026 season when we start playing baseball in Buffalo. Justin LeGuernick, who was a third-round pick of ours in our first draft, has spent 2 years in rookie ball. You can see hasn't been particularly successful thus far. That said, he's not even 19 years old yet, although he turns 19 tomorrow. So Cal Randall, another one of the pitchers that we picked towards the top of the draft last season, also just completed a second consecutive year in rookie ball. Very ineffective this season also with an 8.19 ERA. Ethan Robinson, fifth round draft pick, another one of those pitchers that we picked in 2023. Hasn't been good in rookie ball either, but just trying to figure out what we have with some of these people. And another pitcher that we picked in 2023, Luke McNeely. He was our fourth round pick then. Has hit a 12.96 and a 7.99 ERA in rookie ball. He's angry by his performance. Quite honestly, if you've got an ERA of 8, glad to see that you're angry with your performance. So still not a ton of big-time prospects in our system. Gavin Grayovac, who was our second-round pick back in 2023, hasn't done much. 4 homers each year in rookie ball. Still looks like he could be versatile as far as the amount of positions that he can play, but don't know that he's really going to develop a major league bat. So we definitely have some work to do in terms of improving our farm system. Obviously, that ranking is driven almost entirely by having the number 1 prospect in baseball, which has been a nice acquisition for us without a doubt, but need to hopefully work on rounding out the depth of our organization over the next year, year and a half before we have to start playing at the major league level. So before we finish up this episode, we'll go ahead and see who ends up winning the World Series, and we'll also have an opportunity to check in on the top prospects available in international amateur free agency for this upcoming winter. And it's October 17th, so it's the start of the international amateur free agency period. Similar to Nashville, we will have $5.7 million to spend, so we can bid with anybody if there's somebody that we really want come January. We'll just take a quick look at the top 8 prospects that, admittedly, with very poor information, our scout thinks are the only players with 3.5 star or more potential. Starting pitcher Humberto Elzarenga out of Nicaragua. Boy, if that changeup develops, he could have a nasty arsenal of pitches. 45 stamina isn't great, but he's a 16-year-old who's already throwing in the low to mid-90s. It's really just a matter of whether he turns into a potentially dominant starting pitcher or a potentially dominant reliever. A lot of uncertainty around that changeup, but he could be an interesting prospect. Ambrosi Gaona, right fielder. That's an interesting looking bat with contact and home run power that are both outstanding, potentially real interesting prospect for the right fielder who is more accurately a DH. He's got no speed, can't really play anywhere in the field, but with that bat, I don't think you're going to mind if he really develops fully. Jesus Lara, a 16-year-old out of the Dominican, right field prospect, very potentially well-balanced bat. Don't love the low intelligence, not a great glove, but still has a lot of potential to be a pretty useful player. Derek Boot, a third baseman, has the arm to play third base. I don't know about anything else. And also has an interesting bat, potentially. Jorge Resendez, center field prospect, like the high work ethic, like the durability. Bat looks like it could be a little bit above major league average. If he completely develops, certainly 65 contact and 65 home run power make him a potentially interesting hitter. David Vergara, third baseman, another guy with potentially 65 contact, 65 home run power, won't strike out a ton, not going to draw a ton of walks, not incredible defensively. And Nelson Abarca, Dominican catcher, don't love the low work ethic, looks like he's potentially pretty decent defensively with a potentially interesting bat for a catcher, also like the durability. And last but not least, Willem Gillorn, out of Australia, first baseman. Looks like he could have a bat that's a little above major league average. Love the leadership and work ethic both being high. Does not bring much of anything to the table defensively. He is a pure DH. So a few interesting prospects there for us to think about. We'll certainly invite the top 8 to our camp to get a better look at them. I'll also figure out a couple other guys that we'd like to bring into camp, and then we will run the first training session and then head towards the end of the season and find out who the champions are. And we've got 10 players that we're going to run through the camp here in October. We added 2 more pitching prospects, Rodolfo Sico and Jesus Berrientos, to join Humberto Alzarenga, as well as the 7 position players that we talked about. So the goal right now is just to improve some relationships and improve some scouting accuracy on these guys. Go ahead and run the practice, and we have started to build a few relationships, know a few of the players a little better than we did before. So making a little bit of progress as we try to ensure that we can hopefully bring on at least one more big-time prospect through international amateur free agency this offseason. And we have made it to the 2024 to 2025 offseason. Your 2024 mythical World Series champions are the Atlanta Braves, who took out the Tampa Bay Rays 4-3. We'll take a quick look at where our farm system stands. We're 13th at the end of the season officially. You can see Andres Medina has regressed a bit to be the 3rd prospect in baseball. Henry Allen, who we just picked in the first round, 20th overall this past year, had a very abbreviated season in rookie ball for us. Hit .308 in just 26 at-bats. Didn't get injured. So that's a little weird because we were forced starting him at third base to ensure that he did play. I know it took a while for him to sign. Still would have thought that he would have played more than 13 games, but it is what it is at this point. And then Humberto Rosado, who's actually just a minor league free agent signing we made before this past off season. He's 26 years old, so he's not a big-time prospect, but for some reason he is viewed now as the 112th best prospect in baseball. Certainly has a profile that I think could be useful to us at the major league level in a couple of years. He was 10-9 with a 3.94 ERA in Double-A this year. We'll see what he can do in Triple-A next year, and would think that he'll certainly be a contender to join our pitching staff. So we are going to head into another off season. We will be adding a Double-A, or we'll be adding a Triple-A affiliate and a High A affiliate this off season. Start signing more minor league free agents to hopefully stock all of those teams with some players and hopefully a few legitimate prospects. And we're also going to be letting you know which two teams will be moving. I indicated in the last episode we are going to be moving the Oakland A's to Las Vegas in this offseason. We're also going to be moving one other team to a new locale for the 2025 season. And then obviously in the 2026 season, Buffalo and Nashville will be joining the major leagues when we expand to 32 teams. And we'll also have the opportunity to actually start playing some major league games with Buffalo at that point. So it's been an interesting process to kind of follow this more circuitous path to building a expansion franchise, but hopefully a more rewarding path to building a expansion franchise than just the traditional way to quickly do it in OOTP. And we'll find out how the off season goes and how the 2025 season goes in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.